I've made a bunch of these special edition videos, and by now I'm sure many of you are familiar with them. If you aren't, I basically try to find the most obscure editions, packages, limited time offerings, things like that. Limited time offerings can mean a 1 year only body style or transmission or configuration. The videos and pictures on screen have been featured already. I have a playlist dedicated to this series if you'd like to watch more. This time I'm featuring General Motors again, probably the easiest to find entries given they've had many divisions over the decades. One last thing, I try to have a nice assortment of entries that are all different from one another and will showcase them in chronological order. With that out of the way, a video on some of GM's strangest editions from over the years. We begin with the 1979 GMC Mule, and this is a very rare one. So rare that there's only a few advertisements on it. There's no actual pictures from owners or car spotters, nothing. The ad says it was a sport package available on all GMC pickups. It also mentions Chicagoland and the 19 participating dealerships running this promotion. From what I've been reading, it seems like this was a dealer special unique to the metro area. The features included were solid oak side rails, unique wheel covers, body, side, and hood stripes, and exclusive model identification. In other words, a mule on the back of the truck. I don't breed mules for a living, so I just found out that a mule is a hybrid of an ass and a horse. In all honesty, this seems kind of dumb, and it doesn't seem like it came from GM directly. Dodge around this time had the Warlock, and that seemed like the far better option if you ask me. I'm going to add a bonus entry, which is the thumbnail, since our first entry was a little lackluster. The Caballero was GMC's version of the El Camino, and they both had similar packages. 3rd gen El Caminos were offered with the Royal Knight package, and GMC's version was the Diablo. Really neat hood graphic, lower body accent paint, body colored mirrors, front air dam, decals, and unique wheels were the main additions. Here's the thing, while this package was bizarre, the Diablo was offered through the end of the Caballero name, which is almost 10 years. I somehow found this one-of-one prototype designed by GMC guys out on the West Coast. With all prototypes, the purpose was to test out sales potential. The name for it was the Diablo del Calais, or essentially Street Devil. On screen is a magazine cover from Motor Trend from the year 1979, and featured on the front cover is the prototype. The package costs an additional $1,700 on top of a basic Diablo, or $7,800 in 2024. With it, you got special paint, Pontiac Trans Am steering wheel, halogen headlamps, and the handling package. The handling package came with front and rear anti-roll bars, upgraded tires, and constant ratio power steering. The whole point for the Del Calais package was to beef up the handling and make it more of a sport truck, or Corvette alternative. Switching gears completely in the opposite direction is our next entry, the Cadillac Eldorado Touring Coupe that was only offered in 1990 and 1991. That would mean we are referring to the 11th generation Eldorado, which was released in 1986. I believe this was the shortest Eldorado compared to all 12 generations as well. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of this generation, and I guess many others weren't when these first came out. 1985, the last year for the 10th gens, still managed to produce over 74,000 units. The first year of this brand new generation only managed to squeeze out 21,000 units. We're talking over a 70% drop in sales.
Good evening, Tim.
I've talked a lot about Cadillacs, and now the 86 Cadillacs are talking back.
We monitor all our own systems.
The new Eldorado and Seville are two of the smartest cars ever made.
Thank you, Tim.
Can you tell me how my engine's doing?
Just ask information.
Brains and beauty. What more could you ask for? You said it. Performance. What more could you ask for? You said it. Performance.
Despite these not being a fan favorite, for 1990 and 1991, an all-new trim was offered, Touring Coupe. This package set buyers back around $2,000 back in 1990, or around $5,000 in today's money. You got the same engine as the other Eldorados, a 4.5-liter V8 good for 180 horsepower and 245 pound-feet of torque. For 91, this engine was upgraded to a 4.9-liter that made 200 horsepower and 275 pound-feet of torque. But the other Eldorados came standard with this engine as well. The Touring package added higher performance rear axle ratio and gearing, thicker rear stabilizer bar, quicker steering ratio, dual exhaust, anti-lock brakes, upgraded tires, unique wheels, and international style tail lamps. That just means they were amber, and that was kind of the purpose of this trim, was to compete with BMW and Mercedes. The interior, of course, was also upgraded. You got many features as you would expect from a Cadillac. Were these cars fast? Not really, but these Cadillacs were fast for a Cadillac, if that makes any sense. With the 4.9, 0 to 60 was in around 8.3 seconds, which made these one of the fastest Cadillacs in a long time. However, these were expensive and there was just far better options if you wanted performance, but still an interesting trim that deserves an entry. Our next entry is the 1997 to 1998 Oldsmobile 88 Regency. This was your father's Oldsmobile, and while the brand was trying to move away from that image, the 88 was still available. For a little bit of context, the 98 Oldsmobile's full-size sedan ended production right in 1996. Associated with the 98 was the Regency trim, or the top-of-the-line, most luxurious offering for the 98. Since the 98 was discontinued, Oldsmobile decided to carry the nameplate on over to the 88. They took the 98's chrome grille and front fenders and slapped it right onto the 88, and I have to say, it looks good. They also received nicer wheels, white wall tires, and a Regency badge, and apart from that, the outside looked like every other 88. Which is totally fine. I think the whole goal for this was to just look subtle and not so much in your face. And also, you're really paying for the interior, and these were loaded up. Traction control, leather seats, dual climate zone control, steering wheel audio and climate controls, dual 6-way power seats, electronic level control for the suspension, and a bunch of other features. One unique aspect to these is the front bench seat, a feature that was slowly fading away around this time. Also, the other 88 trims switched badges to the new Rocket oval logo, while the Regency trim kept the old Rocket logo that was introduced back in '81. They came with GM's 3800 engine, super reliable, and these drove very nicely. To be honest, I'm taking one of these over the top-of-the-line LeSabre. I think it was called Limited. To me, they just look more elegant. Elegant indeed, as these cost an additional $5,000 or almost 10 grand in today's money over a base 88. Around 16,000 of these were produced, and Oldsmobile would drop the trim 1 year before the 88 met its demise a year later. That just goes to show that this Regency trim was not popular. To drop the trim 1 year before the nameplate is dropped, it just, I guess it wasn't a sales success. Our last entry goes to the 2006 and 2007 Pontiac G6 3.9 manual. In 2025, manual transmissions just really aren't offered anymore. There still are a few, but they are dying out. I think other markets have more availability, but here in the States, just not so much. Rewind 15-20 years ago, and manual transmissions were in the Fusion, Regal, Accord, Passat, and a bunch more. To have a manual and a V6 in a sedan was not common though, and Pontiac with the G6 offered this combo for only 2 years. For 2006, the 3.9 was only offered on GTP models, or top of the line, but come 2007, it was optional on GT models. The GTP would change engines in '07 and were no longer available with a manual. The 3.9 featured variable valve timing, which just means better fuel efficiency at lower RPMs and more power at higher RPMs. VVT is pretty common nowadays, but 15 years ago it wasn't, and that was a huge plus to this engine. Speaking of power, these made 240 horsepower and 241 pound-feet of torque, 0 to 60 in around 6.3 seconds. Automatic versions made 227 horsepower, which is a 13 horsepower drop. It's a Pontiac G6 at the end of the day. I mean, I still see a few here and there, but this combination is rare, and it does make them unique. And there you have it, more special editions from General Motors. If you have any suggestions for future entries, feel free to let me know in the comments down below. If I sound a little less enthusiastic or a little bit more melatonin, I'm kind of getting sick, so hopefully by next week it will be all good to go, and hopefully by next week I should have my car dropped off, so stay tuned for that. That is going to wrap it up for this week's video. Enjoy the rest of your week, and I will try to see you all next week.